It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by Ray White, the largest real estate and property group in Australasia.
And welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Podcast. We are talking to Tony Roumanous from Ray White Bankstown. Welcome to the Real Estate Podcast.
Thank you very much, Craig.
Tony, how have you learnt to adapt during COVID? Because, it's been such a trying period for everybody. Nobody is immune from it.
Because it was uncharted waters, and you are so correct, Craig, that nobody was immune from it. So it is something that everyone had to learn to adapt. We were very fortunate. We got some great leadership from the corporate office ourselves. The willingness to adapt and to make changes, we've always been, Charlie, my business partner, and I have always been prepared to listen and learn. And I think COVID was an unbelievable learning curve. We were very much auction orientated though, and I think that helped us a fair bit because nobody knew where prices were going to go. Nobody knew where the feedback was, the consumer, what should happen. Was there going to be, should everything freeze? Should the consumer turn around? And, our vendors were asking, well, hang on, what do we do? What are we able to do? So fortunately, because we keep a fair amount of stats with buyers, inspections every week, I track inspection numbers every week. So we were able to give our vendors and potential vendors, etc., some hard cold facts. So I think during COVID for us, the ability to adapt was we really had to get the facts. And I think so many people were making assumptions. So many people were just prepared to go home. And, I think we're in a position where we had to listen to what the buyers wanted and what the sellers wanted. And I think it's been a great market for the sellers for that reason, because buyers weren't going anywhere. So they certainly won't, they didn't want to sit at home, although we had to do a fair bit of online work.
You're talking about adapting, but in your case, your brain has got to work that much harder because you've got 35 staff that you've got to look after and also help them adapt to the situation.
One of the things we've always worked on is leadership. In any business, I've always said, there's 4 steps for us when it comes to performance and getting our people to be able to perform. I'm a believer of you've got to have process, you've got to have the leadership. That leads to culture. And culture is, it's what you're prepared to accept. That for us was very, very important, that we did have to show the leadership. And because I suppose if I was a pilot of a plane and it was code red, the last person you want to panic is the pilot. So that'd be about the best analogy I can give you.
That's a good analogy, yeah. Let's keep that plane up in the air is probably what most people are saying.
Let's hope like all the pilot knows what they're doing. So sometimes even if you don't, you've got to take control.
It's been a while since I've been on a plane, I have to say.
Well, I can't wait for us. Well, I can't even drive to Queensland, so we'd love to travel, but we're patient. We'll be patient. We'll get there. We've come this far. Now's not the time to panic. We're getting close.
So we're talking about the vendors as well. Of course, they're having to undergo this whole mindset with what has happened to the market. Vendors, whether they realise it or not, they're always interested in great feedback, aren't they?
Oh, look, I think it's so easy to be able to tell people, Craig, what they should do. I honestly believe that we have a responsibility to back it up with the facts. If you're not prepared to gather the facts, what's happening with buyers? What's happening with prices, supply, demand, etc. And that was a big thing. When COVID first hit us, for us, the demand was still there. The buyers had not disappeared. So it was changing the mindset of our vendors to say, look, because so many people were making assumptions, they were making so many assumptions based on facts that were not proven, or just the unknown. They'd read something, they'd see something posted up on Facebook, or the minority were talking. I think getting the facts before you make any decisions is so important.
Are you saying that people listen to social media? I'm shocked.
Well, I don't mind if they're listening to you, Craig, because I listen to your podcast quite often and you stick with the facts. So it's pretty good. But you allow people to have their opinion, so I appreciate that.
And what's happening in Bankstown? How is that area for you at the moment?
Look, our average sale price is top to $1 million. You know, in February this year, our average sale price was just under $790,000. Today, as I speak to you, our average sale price is around $1,020,000, and we had five online auctions on Saturday and sold all five. So, yeah, it's great. We can't complain. You know, we're very fortunate, but like everyone else, everyone's taken advantage. You know, interest rates are great, but the demand is certainly there. On average, we'd have about 10 people register. We've got 4 or 5 active bidders for every auction we have. So we're very fortunate. But the interesting thing is, and people sort of, it's not just, where sales have been made. There's plenty of sales, but there's a fair bit of listings coming on the market too. We've listed 42 properties in the last 15 days, Craig.
Wow.
So that's going to suggest that supply is going to increase. Demand is still there, but it is all about supply and demand.
Well, it certainly sounds like you're going to be busy at Ray White in Bankstown. Tony, thank you so much for coming on to the Real Estate Podcast and telling us a little bit about what you're doing there.
Craig, an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having us on.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.